It's time for the Thyworm weekly roundup with my curated news and personal gaming endeavors in a single video. Are you enjoying these? Consider subscribing. Starting off with Blizzard. BlizzCon is currently ongoing and some games have been revealed. Despite the protests, the Hong Kong issues, an apology that I thought was very weak and the generic greedfest Blizzard Activision has become, it seems they're relatively successful in making BlizzCon about the games again, with at least some exciting reveals. You're looking at the new cinematic trailer for Diablo 4, which is going to be an MMO-light spiritual successor to Diablo 2, and there's nothing more exciting than a fully rendered Blizzard cinematic, honestly. This trailer looks absolutely amazing and gives a clear indication about the direction the new title in the popular franchise is going. The world will be much grittier and darker. It's honestly just horrifying, this stuff. Colors are less saturated, there are at least 3 playable characters, the environments will be open and large with even mounts to get you from A to B, and there are world bosses. I mean, this is going to be so good if the final product is anything like they've shown the last couple of days. Unfortunately, the game won't be releasing anytime soon, not even Blizzard soon, said director Luis Barriga. That will take a few years, that's for sure. Fans were also hoping for a Diablo 2 remaster, but there hasn't been any word on that and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. We'll have to wait for Diablo 4 to fill that void, I'm afraid. Last Epoch released a sneak peek at their latest skill, Disintegrate. It releases a huge beam and now the first conceptual skill tree is released as well. The devs tend to do this up front to receive some feedback and then discuss that feedback in their internal skill design meetings to make changes accordingly. The relationship between the community and the devs is a very interesting one, with the community not being hesitant to speak out against changes they don't like. What's nice about this whole discourse, however, is that posts are always made with respect to the devs and there's an actual conversation going on with mutual respect. Posts are taken seriously and the game gets better because of it. After the last update about masteries, which was really well received, the skill tree of Disintegrate was met with a ton of criticism. Main points of that criticism were about the high mana costs of the skills, the trade-offs of different nodes that forced unwanted decisions, and overall a lack of originality. Mage is a class that really needs some love because it's a bit on the weak side right now, and the general consensus seems to be that this Disintegrate skill won't make the mage more powerful. The devs are taking the feedback at heart always, so I'm curious to see what the skill will look like at release. Sarno hinted that the next patch might be coming half November at the earliest, so it's at least a few weeks off. I purchased Waltz of Mayhem during the Halloween sale. I was curious about this game, which has definitely had its troubles over the last years. Some would even call it development hell, but I thought there would be enough value to warrant the 20 euros I paid for it. I played for about 4 hours currently and have already reached endgame, which consists basically of a bunch of recycled maps with bosses in it, which you need to defeat for a reward. There's an NPC, Dashing Eugene, who gives you a quest each time, which you can complete for additional rewards. You can also use modifiers on those maps, increasing the difficulty and the quality of the loot. My first impression is that it feels a bit bare bones. The campaign was interesting but extremely short. What I did like a lot about the game is the pacing. It's relatively slow, especially compared to a game like Path of Exile, but this allows the game to bring some interesting boss fights with dodge mechanics, and you're also not blazing through the maps, which I like. Grim Dawn takes a similar approach and I can appreciate that. Combat itself feels pretty good, I'd say. It's meaty and impactful, the screen shake and sound effects are good, and my crit build worked pretty well. There are quite a few skills to try out for some variation, and the game has a sort of PoE light passive wheel. I did feel, however, that the passives present were a bit underwhelming. Skills on the other hand felt good, but a bit imbalanced still. I'm not really sure yet if it's a game I would recommend at this point. Definitely not for the full price, but at least this purchase gives me an option to check the news on Waltz and then see in-game what it's all about. For me, that's worth it. If I were you, I'd really hold on a bit to see what this game becomes. It is supposed to release in the first half of next year, I believe. Tribes of Midgard, a top-down survival action RPG with no less than 10-player co-op, has delayed their 3rd open beta, which is now launching in December. The game is procedurally generated, features day and night cycles with different enemy types in each one, and is ultimately about defending your homestead against the giants of Ragnarok. Heavily inspired on Norse mythology, this game looks really interesting. It's not just hack and slash, but includes resource gathering and crafting as well, and from what I've seen so far, it has a nice aesthetic and feel to it. I'll be jumping in that beta and see how it plays. Remnant from the Ashes dropped a big patch and shared multiple posts with some pretty interesting news. First of all, it sold 1 million copies, so that's amazing, and it well deserved, for a game that a lot of fans seem to like. Secondly, they released a roadmap with some very generic content updates. They will be more fleshed out as time progresses, but the first big patch already released at Halloween. One of the main new features is hardcore mode, which always gets the blood running because of permadeath. Also, communications have been improved, with a ping system where you can request a few things of your fellow hunters, like ammo type, help, point out a certain direction, or return to a world stone. I was about to pick this game up during the sale, but decided against it for now. I got a few games on the Microsoft Game Pass I still want to dive into, and it's really busy time at work towards the end of the year, so I stuck to buying just one game. But at some point I will play this. Some of the minor quality of life changes have been implemented as well, like the option to hide your helmet, hide tutorial prompts, and the ability to skip the tutorial entirely at character creation, clearer tooltip description, and an additional character slot. There are a lot more changes in this patch, but I can't really comment on that because I don't own the game. You will find the links to all the sources and materials used in the description, so you can read it for yourself. Kingdom Come Deliverance has released modding tools. Warhorse Studios delivered a truly amazing game last year, which I've enjoyed playing a lot. I did a bunch of videos on modding that game as well, but because there really weren't that many mod tools available to the mod community, the mods itself were usually borderline cheats or graphical or coloring overhauls. There was some UI stuff, some balancing, but nothing that really significantly changed the game, like additional locations, new NPCs, or even new quests. With the tools provided to the community, all these things are possible, and I can't wait to see what the modding community comes up with. I've always enjoyed covering mods, and I will definitely keep an eye out for what I'm hoping is a fresh influx of mods for a game that already has a huge world, but can be improved significantly with original mods. It's very promising for sure, and I'm excited to see what is next. Pagan Online extended the period in which you can get the spider pet that gives plus 3% crit chance. Log in before November 4th to get it, otherwise it'll be gone forever. I logged in just a little bit to enjoy the Halloween decorations and to get the pet, which I thought were very well made. Also, I need to apologize for not streaming Moons of Madness. Work got in the way and I didn't have time later either. Another one for the cat venturers amongst you, Cat Quest 2 now has online co-op. The game already provided local co-op, but you can now play online as well using the Steam overlay in-game and selecting a friend to play with. It's still somewhat of a beta feature, but users reported it working well. The only requirement right now is that one of you uses a gamepad and the other uses mouse and keyboard. The game plays very well with both, so that shouldn't really be an issue. Oh, and they also decided to release a hot dog sword, because why not? Indie game Lost Ember has a release date, November 22nd. It's a super atmospheric game about the fall of mankind where nature has reclaimed the world. You're a wolf, the game oozes hippie vibes, but it does look amazing, and this is the kind of game I can really enjoy just for the experience. Atom RPG, an isometric turn-based RPG that got released by the end of last year, released some footage of their new expansion, Trudograd. Atom RPG is yet another post-Fallout top-down RPG with some really great atmosphere. In this sneak peek we see some new screenshots, the introduction of a new exoskeleton which seems inspired by the Fallout games, a bunch of concept art and some background story on the city itself. I haven't played the original yet, but this is my kind of game and I thought you might like this as well. I finished The Outer Worlds. It's definitely a must play. I took about 25 hours to complete it and it's been a blast. Definitely one of the best games of the year, and I've already started my second playthrough, which is really something I hardly ever do with games. This time I'm doing a hardcore mode playthrough which adds some survival stats and toughens up the enemies significantly. Also, your companions can die permanently and save options are very limited. I think it's going to be very interesting, because my first playthrough was without companions, going as a lone wolf sniping my way through the galaxy. Now we're going to be much more in their face, focusing on melee and companion skills to hopefully keep me alive. I've been having such a great time with this title. I encountered literally one graphical glitch and no bugs otherwise. I was fully immersed in the world and this game is just really good. I can't recommend it enough. I also managed to finish Metro Exodus, finally. It took longer than I expected because that game is just getting on my nerves, man. I really enjoyed the open world levels where you can freely move around and just kill bandits, but then it turns to night, the monsters come out and the game just changes into a horror game. It's fantastic and really well done, but I can't play a game like that for hours on end. Just like the previous two titles, however, I forced myself to sit down and play, especially through the last level, which is a complete mindfuck and features more of the visions Artyom had in previous titles, but in the end I made it. What a relief. It felt really good, however, and this is definitely a title that I will remember for quite a while. I purchased all the expansions for Grim Dawn, looked up an amazing guide so far, Miss Melty Cakes, and I'm currently just running through the game again with the build guide. It's the first time I'm using one. Previously I tried figuring out my own builds, but this for me just makes the game so much more enjoyable because I really haven't grasped all the basics yet and I just want a solid build to get through all the content so I can enjoy that and not have to worry about my own character. And that is all I have for you this week. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you all next week. Love you all. Bye bye.